first thing about this saber, this is supposed to be a replica of a Qui-Gon Jinn lightsaber, but the blade is red. And nowhere in the Star Wars universe has Qui-Gon Jinn had a red blade. So they could have easily just put the right color to this, but instead they made it red. So that's actually really stupid. There's a lot of lightsabers they could have themed it after instead of Qui-Gon Jinn's.
Wrong!
This weapon is your life. You will die.
Hello and welcome to This Weapon Is Your Life. This is going to be a new type of series documenting the fully collapsible lightsaber toys from all the way back in 1999 with the originals coming up to the present. The reason why I'm only doing the fully collapsible ones is because they are one of the most undocumented yet somehow most influential ones kind of in the history. We've got a lot of other ones where half the blades stick out, or with the inflatable blades, or the multicolored blades, so on and so forth. But I figured we'd start with some of the more basic, kind of entry-level lightsabers imaginable. If you couldn't tell by the first clip, I was immediately peeved upon seeing that video because I was looking for any history videos, so on and so forth, about these types of lightsabers, but yet very little exist, if not none. Any videos that do have them usually only give them about a minute's worth of information before moving on to the next. There are a couple videos out there that actually do talk about them, but I figured it might be better just to go with full in-depth. So the way this series is going to work is I'm going to be taking a lightsaber hilt of the time. I've compiled a whole Excel spreadsheet just kind of labeling out how I want to do this. So generally videos would be about 3 to 4 lightsabers in itself. However, with these first generations, the ones starting way back in 1999, I will be doing not just the 3 hilts. Those will all get their own separate videos, but I'll be doing the colors because with the starting lightsabers, they came in various different colors. So I will go into the history of them. So the first lightsaber that we have is the standard Qui-Gon Jinn. The reason why we're starting with this one is not only to have all 3 lightsabers here in the beginning of this video, I'm still waiting on some to arrive. This is the only one where I actually have all 3 versions of it ready and available currently in my hands. Well, not in my hands, but regardless, getting off track. So, also starting with this one because this was actually my first lightsaber ever. Currently one that is in my fingertips as we speak. It is very heavy battle damage. It is seen countless wars, has been thrown off of buildings, has been quite literally submerged in mud, submerged in a pool. It's been beaten hell and back, and it still functions quite admirably. So this one is the standard green Qui-Gon Jinn blade hilt. The hilt itself actually measures around 10.25 inches long, whereas the blade, depending on which blades you get, can usually between 21 inches to 22 inches fully extended. I've checked with all 3 of the Qui-Gon hilts, measured all 3 blades, and yeah, the average is about 21.8 if I remember correctly. These lightsaber hilts came in 3 different colors. So we have the standard green, then we have the standard red, and the standard blue. So we have 3 lightsaber colors in one hilt. So the question is, why do we have mismatched colors with a standard hilt that's just supposed to be green? Well, back in the day, Hasbro had a whole bunch of these extra lightsaber tubes around, and they figured kids, instead of just making 20 different hilts for the time, or maybe not 20 at that point, with Phantom Menace coming out, we would have Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, Darth Maul, Luke Skywalker, original blue hilt, we'd have Darth Vader, then we'd have Luke's green, then we'd have old Obi-Wan's hilt, we'd have a couple. Instead of divulging more money into modeling more hilts, it was actually cheaper and more effective just to make more colors of blades and just throw them out there, just saying, oh, well, this one could be this is a Jedi Master blade, because it's green and usually accommodated with the Jedi Masters. Whereas if someone wants to go more of a Darksider, they can just get this blade, or get this hilt, but have this blade color into it. Quite literally, it's quantity over quality in that sense. Plus, with the creativity of kids in mind, most of the time people would say, I like that hilt, but I don't like that color. Permanently for me, this hilt, this color, it stuck with me throughout my entire childhood. I didn't want to swap it at all, which is another thing I will be getting into. So because the lightsaber came in these 3 colors, at the time there was a 4th color that didn't make it into this set of blade, or this set of hilts. For some reason, for every hilt between 1999 and 2005, there's 3 hilts available, 4 colors. And for every hilt, they left out a color. So for the Qui-Gon hilt, we have the traditional green, we have the blue, we have the red. The color that's missing is purple. Not to say that purple can't be available for this, it just isn't available off the shelf. In order to actually get purple for Qui-Gon, it needs a blade swap. Now you're thinking, okay, well, there's no screws on this thing, it's heavily melt together, there's no way of getting into this thing or ripping out the blade and keeping everything intact, when in reality that's not the case actually. So on all 3 of the hilts, the bottom pommel and the top emitter both come off. However, the top emitter is not recommended to come off because it is very heavily, I don't want to say solvent weld, but there's a lot of adhesive keeping this top part on, because with the blades being these not high impact, but very going to be heavily used blades, they don't want that to break off and then all of a sudden come flying out, because that's the part that's going to be constantly flying with momentum to shoot off the blade and hit the kid in the face. That's lawsuit 101. But turns out the bottom can actually come off, and quite easily if I had nails. There we go. So the bottom pommel comes right off. The belt hook also comes out of here, and then we have access to the mechanism, the locking mechanism at the bottom of this. Now what you can do at this point is, most of the time, you can actually just start to peel the lightsaber apart like this, to the point where you can actually get it quite open without breaking it. It is decently durable plastic, like I said. Been thrown off of multiple buildings, hit by cars. It's been through the worst. But you pull it apart, once you get enough space in there to try and wriggle out the blade, you can, because as you can see right here, the entire blade is shown. So you just pull it apart, take out the blade, put a new one, and then make sure the locking mechanism and everything lines up. And then putting it back together is actually just as easy. And it still works. At the time of the production of these lightsabers were some of the cheapest to come by in terms of cost. In, I believe, most of the states they were around $8 to $10. Up here in Canada they were around $10 to $12. But I mean, still, for around $10, getting a fully collapsible, almost any color of lightsaber blade available with an included belt hook was pretty good. Pretty much every school and class that I went to, at least 50% of each class, if not more, had one of these lightsabers. Not this lightsaber specifically, but had this generation of lightsabers there, with heavily customizations done to them. I have known people that have quite literally wrapped them up in duct tape. I have seen people spray paint them to the nines, to the point where not only were they doing blade swaps, but they were actually doing full-on blade recolorings, which sounds hard. Not that hard. So depending on what color of lightsaber blade you wanted, you would actually go out, get the closest color to the color that you want, and then spray paint. So if you wanted a different color of green, like a darker green, you get the standard green bladed one with the hilt, whichever one matches your style, if it comes in that. If not, do a blade swap, then just spray paint it a dark green. I believe yellow was more suited towards the red plated ones, and then orange was definitely with the red plated ones. So that way, if you start whacking it and you start going off and hitting, that way only like a little bit of the red starts shining through, and it gives it kind of that cool magma effect is what they called it, which some people started going around saying that they had magma bladed lightsabers back from the old canon of Star Wars before the Disney take. So I'll get into a little bit of history about these lightsabers themselves, because so this traditional green lightsaber blade, or traditional green lightsaber, is the first lightsaber I've ever received. It is very heavily damaged, but yet still in working condition with no modifications to it. What can I say? I like the plain and simple things. So not really much here is gone on record for quite literally outlasting in wars and every single one of my movies without getting sold. It has made it through tons of garage sales without getting picked up by my parents thinking that I don't like it anymore or I'm too old for it. And here I am, right old age of 28, and I'm still holding my first lightsaber that I got when I was 4 years old. That's 24 years of service that this blade has been through, despite majority of it being done in 2005, 2007. Hell, I've even done some fights down in 2009, at least 2009, 2010. Older. More, like even into the 2010s there was some, because the second lightsaber hilt that actually has some history behind it would be this blue one here. Now this lightsaber hilt I actually got off of a friend for a trade. This was done in at least 2014. Long story short, he actually had two of these. Two of the exact same hilt, because he loved the Qui-Gon hilt, but he wanted the blue blades. He wanted two blue blades so he can fight in battles dual wielding them. Like the crazy son of a bitch he was. He actually traded me this hilt for one of the other ones I had, because at the time I had a hilt and a color that he wanted, which, long story short, was a red Anakin hilt. So this one I used because I didn't have my traditional one because we weren't planning on it, but he dug these out and we had a, I think 2 a.m. lightsaber fight to the point where security called on us at the location that we were at. So when I was chit-chatting with him, I said how I really admired the condition he kept this blade in. And he says, well, if I wanted it, I could have it, but I'd have to trade him for it. And I said, okay, well, I got a couple lightsaber blades at my house. I will trade you one of them. Here's the ones I have. And when I told him, he immediately was just like, I want the red Anakin. I was like, all right, deal's the deal. So that is the story of this lightsaber hilt. I won't be going into stories for many of the lightsaber hilts because most of them are just bought. Prime example being this one here, the red Qui-Gon. Don't really have any good stories with this, but I can tell just by the look of this blade, it has been fairly used. It is one of the classic original 99 blades. And when I say 99 blades, I mean 1999, back when they were first introduced. Because the difference being they had about 3 different periods of production. 1999 is when the Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan hilts came out. 2002, all 3, like including the Anakin, and then 2005, they just made another set of them. Exact same colors, exact same hilts, nothing entirely added. It's weird, but if you're ever curious, majority of the hilts have the actual production date on them themselves. But yeah, aside from that, just looking at this, it looks like it has been scraped, it has been painted, or at least had some minor scuffs of paint. However, the blade itself, you can tell by the white areas here and here. Just a better look there, because I don't know if it extends all the way around. But yeah, pretty much there and there. Very heavily used, very high in combat, but with the emitter up here, you can tell it wasn't that heavily used in terms of getting up to lightsaber strikes and whatnot. I'll use mine as an example. You can tell mine, especially around the edges here, the paint is all chipped away and scuffed and everything, whereas this one has had very high concentration of just blade hits, but whoever he was fighting against didn't go down towards the hilt and tried knocking the hilt out. You can tell that just by the paint. The rest of the hilt is actually still in pretty decent condition, aside from some white paint here that just got scuffed, as well as the back. It has been worn on a belt, in fact quite extensively. As you can tell with mine there, it has been worn on a belt a lot. But in terms of the rest of the hilt, the nice silver coloring is very not worn out and still there. So from what I can tell, this blade has seen a lot of action, yet not a lot of being tossed around. But yeah, so with that, I will conclude this episode just with a thank you for clicking on this video. If you have any tips that could be improved upon, stuff you'd like me to go over in the next video, or just have any good stories about lightsaber fights that took place in your neighborhood, your school, your anything really, go ahead, feel free to put them in the comments. I'll read every single one that I can. And yeah, I hope to see you at the next video, which will be the Obi-Wan hilts, once the other 2 hilts finally arrive. Thank you, and